Okay, we're going to cross over to Shaun Tomson. As I said earlier, he needs very little, if any, introduction. But to put it simply, he's been influential surfers ever, the top 10 greatest ever, and a world champion in 1977. And I would think if I had to sit here the whole evening and write down his, or if I had to write down his accolades, it would take the whole evening. So let's bring the great Shaun Tomson. Shaun, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, it's great to be there, and I missed coming back to South Africa. But I'm going to be there for a couple of weeks in August. Looking forward to that. So just around the corner, and it's great to chat to you guys.
Well, when you come in August, you can come and get your pineapple jacket from Almalia. You look nice at Jabba in that jacket.
I want that pineapple jacket from Gino the Jeweler. I want it.
Anthony had a car accident when he was 4 or 5 years old. We can never quite remember. But I want him to tell you the story of Shaun.
There you go. And all yours.
Okay, so when I was 5, it was 5, not 6, I had a car accident and it left me paralyzed. So I have an arm that doesn't work. And I started surfing because the doctors said to my parents that they should get me a surfboard so that it would force me to try and use my right arm, which they did. And clearly it didn't work because I still paddled with one arm. But what did happen was I got hooked into surfing. And every other surfer on the planet, it's the bug bites. It becomes a lifestyle, not a sport. And you just want to get better as a surfer and surf often. And I was 7 years old, and I had an old Lamont single fin, and I would put it on my bed. And I think most, the young kids do this these days with the fin off the back of the board, and pretend I was surfing on the board. But on the wall in front of me, there was a picture, and I think it was Jerry Lopez. It was a point of view shot where the camera is behind him on the surfboard. You could see his feet, and he was in a barrel, and you could see the barrel, kind of going over him. And I would stand on my board and pretend that was me, surfing on this wave. And then I would also regularly lie in bed. It was 1977 when Shaun became world champ. And I would literally kneel down and pray that I could be world champion surfer like Shaun Tomson. I would say those words. And then obviously, you get older and you're not good enough, and the dream gets lost because maybe you're disabled or you're not good enough and you don't win contests. And then Adaptive Surfing came around in 2015. And this Robin de Kock from Surfing South Africa called me and said, would you like to go and surf, and compete for South Africa? And of course I was in. And we reached out to Shaun that year to come and give us, give us our blazers. And he met us on the beach. And Shaun, by the way, that your presence there, not only for our team, but for the whole adaptive community was remarkable. I mean, people were lining up to take photos with you. It was we were so proud that you were one of us, on the beach. It was a real special experience for everybody. Oh, there's the shot. That was actually I think that was the following year. So to end the story, 40 years later, after me praying to God to be world champion like Shaun Tomson, I ended up winning the world title and becoming a world champion, and Shaun Tomson was on the beach there to celebrate.
Fantastic.
Since we're talking about parenting, can we chat a little bit about Matthew and Luke?
Yes, I have a beautiful son now. My son Luke, his name means light and healer, and certainly he has been a light and a healer. He's 12 years old now. And he's in London at the moment on vacation with Carla. I'm going over next week. And then our first boy was Matthew. And we lost our first boy to a bad choice. He played a dangerous game. We believe that he heard about it at school, called the choking game. All the students wore school ties. It was at my old school. And, we lost our beautiful son. So that really took my life down a different path. And after that, I just kind of reevaluated where I'd been and where I was going. And I just went down a completely unexpected path of now inspiring and empowering people to find their fundamental purpose in life as a way, essentially, to make better choices. So I went back to graduate school. I'd done my BCom at Natal University, at KwaZulu-Natal University. So I did a Master of Science in the study of influence and inspiration. Now they call it leadership. And I started doing, writing books and doing these large events and speaking engagements to the biggest and hottest corporations in the world, and schools and universities and rehab clinics and PTSD survivors and jails. I do this thing, I call it the double shucker. So if you're a surfer, you know that's like, how's it my brew? And also it's just a very, I think it's a very beautiful gesture of goodwill. So every time I do a paid speaking engagement, I do one free for a non-profit. It might be a school, university, whatever, PTSD survivors, jails, and that's the way I run my life now, the double shucker process.
Shaun was dialed into surfing. Shaun wanted to be, if there was the thought of a world champ back in those days, Shaun was thinking about being a world champ. I mean, at 7, 8, 9 years old, in Africa, in Durban, South Africa, we had posters of international surfers on our walls. And, hey, bro, I got a story for you. So in 69, winter of 69, I'm walking to school. I'm going to Clifton. I've got my conservative school uniform on. I've got my satchel on. I don't know if you remember those leather sandals that you used to wear with socks. And I'm walking to school, saying hi to all the dogs in the neighborhood. And the dogs in the neighborhood, sometimes they used to chase me. But I'm walking, and I walk by the Natal Mercury, which was the local newspaper.
Yes.
And I took a double take, and I go, hey, man, there's a surfer dude on the front page of the Natal Mercury in 1969. And I'm going, whoa, let me take a look at this. And I look again, and it's freaking Shaun Tomson, my brother, on the cover of the Natal Mercury, riding a 13, 14, 15-foot wave in Makaha, Hawaii. And I go, and the headline was, South African boy conquers Hawaiian waves.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I see this stuff when I'm walking to school, and I'm just going, whoa, what is really going on here? What is really happening?
Yeah.
I like to think now that I like to say I'm a purpose activist. So I'm an activist of purpose. I help activate purpose.
So that's what I was going to say to you. So your purpose is to get others to find theirs.
Yeah. I activate.
That's amazing.
That's what I do.
And if you weren't a surfer, what would you have been? What would have been?
When I grew up, I was always going to be a professional person. But it was going to be like, when I was at varsity, I was studying accounting and I was studying law. So those were the two paths. I was going to be a professional surfer was not on the list. So I went down a completely unexpected path. And it's been wonderful to help build pro surfing and build the surfing industry and inspire young people. So it's just been it's been an incredible run, and it's been unexpected. Surfing's just taken me down such a different path. I loved it from the first moment I stood up, and I'm always so appreciative and thankful that, when I stood up on that first wave at the Bay of Plenty in 1965.
No one ever forgets their first wave.
Yeah, no one ever forgets it, but I was able to keep riding that wave in so many different ways, And surfing gave it to me. So I'm always very very grateful to surfing.
And
Yeah,
having
that's
someone
great.
like Carla beside you, and Carla is just the most fantastic person in this world. Tell me about the secrets of a happy marriage, and in that, the mix of having that terrible loss.
Yeah, so Carla's hot. She's a hot thing. And I just saw her, her mom and my mom they were best friends before they both got married.
That's amazing.
Kind of amazing, yeah. So she was born in SA, moved to London, then came back to South Africa, and her family came and stayed with us. Her mom and her sister and her dad, when they were about 10 or 11 years old, came and stayed with us for a while they came back to South Africa and got back on their feet and found a new place. So the family goes back a long way, but we didn't sort of stay connected when we were kids. And then I saw her in 1986. I just won a big surf contest in Cape Town, and I was out in South Africa, and I saw her across the room, and I went, "Wow, that's
my girl.
She's so hot." And I said to my brother, I went and chatted to her. And I hadn't chatted to her for, I don't know, 20 years or something. I just chatted to her, and I went back to my brother and said, "I'm going to marry her."
Wow.
And I hadn't even gone on a date. I hadn't even kissed her. Then she made me wait for a date.
Good girl.
I couldn't get a date. And then I got a date, and then it was on.
So give me the secrets of a good marriage.
Well, it's not like with my brother and sister. There's not the situation where there's no rorting. There's still a bit of rorting, but I think we're very respectful of each other. She's still red hot and beautiful, which is very important.
She is.
She's also very creative, very talented, very organized, and I think we don't stand on each other's toes. And when we had our terrible loss, so if you have a loss, people handle it differently. Even though you're married and you're close, a lot of marriages actually break up.
You do, yeah.
Lose a kid. But with us, it was like two trees falling over, and we fell on each other, and I think we supported each other, and we gave each other space, and it wasn't like we had a timetable. And I think both of us learned that you have to be completely forgiving of yourself.
Oh, wow.
And each other. So you have to have this. There's no blame. There cannot be any blame. And also there has to be an acceptance of the reality of the what is, as opposed to the what if. Like, what if I hadn't done this? Or what if I'd gone there? Or what if so there's forgiveness, there's acceptance. And then also I think you need to get involved with when I say you need to, this is just my experience. My perspective. I don't give prescriptions. I just give a perspective. I think it's important to get involved with creative and inspirational projects that are good for you, but also good for others. Like after I lost Matthew, I released my book and I started speaking in front of large crowds, and I did busting down the door. I did a lot of creative projects that did two things. I think they both inspired me, they inspired others, but also they kept the memory of my beautiful boy alive. And it was like they were dedicated to Matthew. And then I think it's so important from my perspective is to get back to your faith, whatever that might be. I'm Jewish, but you can be Christian, Muslim, Baha'i, Hindu, whatever your faith is. Reconnect with your faith. Reconnect with your family and friends, and if they want to help you, you must let them help you.
Yes, I should give My wife, your telephone number.
Yeah, and then surfing. Yeah, surfing.
Jokes.
Surfing was so, like I like to think that I've been stoked all my life until then. Stoked, it's like a fire, man. It's like a fire inside you. And my fire had gone out. And then I had a mate in Durban, this guy, Graham Taylor. We sat right next door, our desks were right next door to each other. We were best of friends. We'd surf together and listen to all the music together. We were just really good mates. And he kept phoning me, "Hey, Shaun, let's go surfing, let's go surfing, let's go surfing." And eventually I went, okay. So he took me surfing to this place up by Belicho Bay. I'd never surfed it before. So we walked down to the beach, and the surf is perfection. It's about 4 feet, like autumn in Durban, offshore wind, and the Indian Ocean, the sun is just boiling up through the ocean, because we're on the East Coast, and it's like it's exploding out of the sea. It's like a Gunston ad. Remember we used to have those Gunston ads where the sun would come up. And we walked down these steps, and I jumped in the water, and I paddled out, and I was crying. I was very, very upset. But it was like the salt water, the waves were washing my tears away. It was just an amazing sensation.
Fantastic.
And I paddled out, and I got a wave. And I could feel, Matthew was with me, and I got another wave, and I got another wave. And then just me and Graham. And then I paddled up to Graham. I said, "Hey, G, what's the name of this wave?" And surfers have great names for the waves they ride. He said it's called Sunrise. Sunrise. And I think that represented a new sunrise for me that day. And I got stoked again, and surfing became super popular. Yeah. So surfing, or whatever sport or passion that you have, whether it's just walking on the beach or climbing a mountain or coaching kids for cricket or rugby or whatever, it's that connectivity to sport and passion. It's just so uplifting, and your life might be off balance, and it can just help get you back to equilibrium.
Fantastic.
Thank you for sharing that.
Shaun, can you go back to surfing? I'm a little bit concerned about Spider. I'm sure he could have shaped about 3 surfboards in this time.
Yeah, please, Spider, the legend, God of shaping.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you don't mind, can you maybe just share a little bit of your first trip to J-Bay with us? I think it was in 68, was it not?
Yeah, 68, my dad got a Jeep Wagoneer. My dad used to love cars. Paul said they're like Aston Martins, Jags. He was always loved these fast cars. But he got this Jeep Wagoneer. I think it was the only one in Durban, this big Jeep. And we had put roof racks on top, put our boards on top. And then in the back was squeezed my brother, Jeremy Yates, this red hot surfer from Bay of Plenty in Durban. And then my cousin. We were all facing each other. And we drove off. And we were on the way to Cape Town for the South African Surfing Championships, and we stopped off at J-Bay. So we stopped off, and we stayed in called the Beach Hotel. And where's the point? We found out where the point was, and that morning we drove down to the point in our Jeep Wagoneer, and we jumped out, and they were the most perfect, best waves we'd ever seen in our lives. It was like every surfer's dream to go on a surfing safari, and then when you get there, and the surf is perfect, and there's no one out. It's just us, the 4 of us, and we walk across these like sharp rocks, because in Durban there's no rocks. You know what I mean? We couldn't believe the rocks. We tiptoe across the rock. We've got our little wetsuits on, our little 5'6" V bottoms, and we paddle out into this perfection waves, and that for me, it's like the first time I stood up on a board at Bay of Plenty. The first time I paddled out at Jeffreys Bay was perfect. So those memories, it's like they sear into your consciousness and your subconscious. It's just like part of me, that amazing experience.
And was it from that first trip that, from that moment on, you developed this what would it be, 50 odd year relationship or love for super tubes?
Loved it. And in those days we didn't surf super tubes because the wave was too fast. We used to
I was
surf
going to ask you.
down at the point, and then over the years we moved up to tubes, and then we moved up to super tubes. Because back then there was no leashes, and it just looked like super tube broke too close to the rocks and it was too fast to ride. But I just developed this love, and we used to go down there nearly every school holidays. We'd go down there in July, and we'd go down there in December, and with my dad and my brother and sister, Michael Thompson, and my cousin, and Jeremy, and our friends. And it was just, it just reminds me of, that pure spirit of youth and that amazing stoke.
We're going to play a little clip of you at J-Bay, especially for those viewers who haven't seen you in action at J-Bay. So you've got
in this period that Tomson began an intimate relationship with J-Bay, a spot many feel he rode better than anyone before or since. It was here that he adopted his low, sprawling stance, constantly rocking his board from rail to rail, eyes focused well down the line. It's also where he tuned what became one of the cleanest roundhouse cutbacks in the game. The varied sections and complexity of Jeffries taught Shaun pacing and the benefits of long, fluid turns. It marked his style indelibly.
Oh, J-Bay, I love that.
Yes, you're on top of your game there, Shaun. That first clip of you as a youngster, would that have been that 68 trip?
No, that would have been that. I've got to tell you this, because there are going to be a couple of guys that have got absolutely eagle eyes. That's actually not even J-Bay, that very first trip. That is St. Michael. That's St. Michael's on Sea, and that is taken in 1970. So isn't that a classic that they made a mistake in the movie? And normally,
it certainly looks like J-Bay.
Looks like J-Bay.
Yeah, very much so. And of all the sessions you've had at J-Bay, any one particular session stick out in your mind? Or they're all the same?
No, I've had some great sessions there. I had this one session I had in the, would it be maybe 79 or 80? And this was before people had built their lives around surfing, so during the week, it was absolutely uncrowded. Sometimes there'd be no one out. And on this one day, I was the first guy out. Big, like, when I say big, so J-Bay doesn't really get that big, but it's strong. It was like an 8 to 10 foot day, strong. And I'm the only guy out in the lineup. And I'm sitting there waiting for a wave, and the set comes, and this whole school of dolphins, I don't know, it looked like about hundreds of them just came towards me. And it's amazing, J-Bay, you have this massive school of dolphins, and they're coming towards me, and I swing around, and I paddle into this wave, and I take off, and I'm riding this wave with the dolphins. As I cut back, they're just everywhere under me in the wave there. It was just amazing. And then they all disappear as I get down into the inside section called Impossibles, where the wave gets like really, really hollow. And the sun's coming up over the just off the water towards the mountains there. And I'm inside the tube, way back, and it's dark in there. And as I start coming out, 2 dolphins must have been riding the wave with me. They jump through the tube right in front of me. I think I'm going to actually bash into the dolphins. They're right there. And I ride through this spray and I kick out. It was like insane. It was the greatest wave I ever had. And the only person on earth who saw it was me. And the only person on earth who experienced that was me. So it was was a beautiful moment.
Those boards that you rode in the 70s, have you kept them or did you get rid of them?
Yeah, in those days you would just, you had few boards. You didn't have many boards. You just ride them until they broke, essentially.
Yeah.
And I broke most of the great ones. I've actually still got the first twin fin that Spider made me, which I think is one of the greatest twin fins I've ever made. And I won so many contests on this twin fin that he made me in 1982. I still got that board. But I know Spider's got a couple there, I think.
Well, just we're going to go and have a look at some of the comments here, because Spider's very kindly allowed us to try and auction off a pink banana replica.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, we're going to do it at the end, but I'm just going to disappear to go and look at, I'm going to find some heavy hitters in the comments section. We've got a reserve on it of 10,000, but we'll come back to it. That's ZAR. And yeah, hopefully we can make some money and then donate the money to you, and you can give it to a charity of your choice. So we're going to try. I'm going to go and look at some of the messages and find out if there are any heavy hitters there. So if you don't mind, Sandy, you take over for a while. Then we come back and we're going to do the dangers of pipeline, Shaun.
Okay,
Spider?
Shaun, I've got a few more questions for you.
I beg you, sorry, Sandy. Spider, you're welcome to sit in the backstage there. We're going to come back to you unless you have to go somewhere.
No, it's fine.
100%. Thank you, Spider. Okay, I'm heading over to you, Sandy.
Thank you. Shaun, what does it take to become a world champ?
Wow, that's a pretty big question. But I think firstly it takes the stoke. Spider spoke about how he always thought like I was one of the most stoked people he ever met. Yeah. I have a friend who's one of the most eminent lawyers here on the West Coast. He does huge cases and he lectures up at Stanford. And he told me, Shaun, I asked you a question once about what it takes to become a world champion, and how did you do it? And I said, well, number one, I was just more stoked than anyone else. Yeah. And he told me that he lectured on this. I spoke to this guy who was a world champion, asked, and so that's essential, because with that passion and with that purpose, there's no such thing as practice, ever. I never, ever thought of a surf session in my entire life as practice. Never, ever, ever, ever did I think of going surfing as being practice. I just loved it. And I just think I loved it during my time on tour. I competed my first pro contest in 1969. I competed my last pro contest when I retired in 1989. It was 20 years. I surfed more than anyone else on the planet. Wow. I put more time in the water, and not because I wanted to be the best, but because I loved it. And I think with that love, and obviously I had talent, and I had commitment, I had discipline. I was a lifelong learner. To be a learner, you've got to be humble. So I was a lifelong learner. I would read everything that had ever been written about surfing. I'd read every single book ever written on surfing. And I used to love to read sports biographies and autobiographies about, how sportsmen got the edge, what they do. So I was always very fascinated by not just the mechanics, but the philosophy and the psychology of sport. But it all came from the stoke, I was super stoked. And then from a young age, I also I stayed away from drugs, completely stayed away from drugs. And in that period of surfing, there was a lot of dope. Yeah. All sorts of dope. But I just made a commitment that I would stay away from drugs. And I remember the first year I took the pink banana to Hawaii. I was doing my first year at university, so I was like 19 years old. And I was offered a guy actually that I was staying with. While I was staying in a room that I was renting from his family, and he lived upstairs. He offered me, he said, "Hey, Shaun, you got to try this." He had some aluminium foil and was smoking this white powder, burning it underneath with a burner and smoking. "Hey, Shaun, you got to try it, man. All the guys at Pipeline are doing it." And I'm going, "Nah, what is it?" He said, "No, you got to try it. It's called China White." And I'm going, "China White? What's China White?" He said, "Man, come on, you got to try it." And the process, they call it chasing the dragon. I said, "No, well, what is it?" He said, "It's heroin." So I just went, "There's no way." And I'm out of there. And I left and I moved out and moved to another place. And the guy overdosed, died. A few months
you look
later.
at the headlines,
Yeah, so it was really, we all come to those crossroads when we're young. What are you going to do? Are you going to make a bad choice or not? And I was lucky. I made a lot of good choices. And for me, what shattered me was here's my beautiful son, Matthew, and he made that one bad choice. So, that's one of the things that kind of motivates me now to speak to schools, universities, and people generally, large corporations or groups. You've got to think about that. You got to think about that.
When you're talking to big groups or even small groups, do you see when people get it? Do you see their light comes on when you're talking to them? Do you have that sort of perception around your audience?
For some people in the audience, some people are cynical, but that's why my process, it's a perspective, it's not a prescription. I'm not up there telling anyone which path to travel on, because we make the choice and we make the decision. But I tell people, and young people especially, that decision is going to come your way, and it's going to be a life and death decision. And what can I do? How can I help you?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps you could write your code, 12 lines. Every line begins with "I will," as a way to have this sense of personal power. But I also say, just think twice.
Yeah, wonderful.
Think twice.
Your first book is amazing. I've got a signed copy. I'm very lucky. Tell us about your second book and how it happened.
Yeah, so my first book was called Surface Code. And Surface Code came as a result of this code that I created for these young kids at Rincon. And then after I came out with the book, I was just at a local school here, a very small school of 80 kids. And I said to the kids, I was talking about my book, because the headmaster had paddled up to me when I was surfing and said, "You want to come down and talk to the kids about Surface Code?" So I was chatting to the kids, and I said, "Surface Code's my code. I wrote it 12 lines. Every line begins with 'I will,' 105 words. Why don't you write your own codes, 12 lines?" And they wrote their codes, and the very first line of code I got back, so this was about 6 months, 8 months after I'd lost Matthew. The very first line I got back from a young girl was, "I will be myself." So I just thought, wow, that is such a powerful, incredible line, and it's so potent that immediately I got inspired to write another book. So I wrote my second book called The Code. And it became really popular. And I use that as a structure now to motivate positive decision making and help people find and activate purpose. And then during COVID, so my career had shifted into keynote speaking and leadership workshops for large corporations. So when COVID happened, I was in Chicago. I had 3 events, and I did my first event and then had to cancel the next 2 on the day because of COVID. And I came back to my wife and I said, "Hey, my business is finished. It's done. I don't know how long COVID's going to go on, but no one is going to be wanting to be in a group of people. I've got to do something different. I've got to change. I've got to make a dramatic change. What am I going to do?" And I'm going, but I know businesses are still going to want to empower and inspire their teams. So let me see if I can do it virtually. So I found a studio downtown here in Santa Barbara and a team. And I went, I'm going to create the first virtual keynotes and workshops, because no one was doing it. Everyone was doing these funky things on Zoom. So I found the technology, I found the people, and I pitched it out to my client. My very first client was the hottest company in the world at that time. They were the only company in the whole world that had a treatment for COVID. It was called Gilead Sciences. They were on the front page of every single newspaper, and their teams were under incredible stress and pressure. So they needed inspiration, upliftment, empowerment, and connectivity. So I created programs for them and did a few events for them. And then I started doing all these events for like amazing companies virtually from the studio downtown.
Amazing, huh?
So what I did is I thought, how are these people feeling about COVID, about the stresses of COVID? How are they feeling? So I found this technology, and I got people to send me texts right at the beginning of my presentation. I go, send me one word.
What, right now, like in the audience?
Send me a word, yeah. Send me a word right now. Text it to me. How are you feeling? And the words, they would text me a word. I had this cool technology, and it would come up on the screen. So someone in Sydney, Australia, and someone in Seoul, North Korea, could send me a word. They'd arrive at the same time, and they populate the screen. And I created this word cloud concept. So the more frequent words, the more popular words were bigger. So say I had 1,000 or 2,000 people on, I get 2,000 texts, but they'd all come up on one screen, and the common words were bigger.
That's wonderful. So you can visually see it.
Yeah. So at a glance, I could see how people were feeling. And this is in all sorts of different groups. So I would do it with PTSD survivors. I do it rehab clinics. I do it with massive companies like Gilead. So the 4 words were
No.
stress, anxiety, depression, disconnection. Those were the 4. I called it a sad mindset. So when I met Noah, my co-author, and he said to me, hey, Shaun, let's write a book. We just met. After 5 minutes, he said, Shaun, let's write a book together.
Just knew.
We were having lunch, and I went, right on. We're going to call it The Surfer and the Sage.
With a little bit on pipeline, we're going to play you a quick video. It's probably 20 seconds, if that. And then just ask you 1 or 2 questions about the dangers of pipeline.
Sure.
Well, I've always thought that pipeline's the most important wave in the world. I think it's one of the most technically challenging waves in the world. I think it's a wave that is really a measure of a surfer's courage, and also of his technical ability. And also it's a measure of his instinct, because it's a very instinctive wave. It's very compressed. It's compressed into ultra steep takeoff, jam into the barrel and out.
There's the pink banana again.
Yeah.
Shaun, some of your hairy moments there? Or some of your more hairy moments?
Yeah, when you see these amazing surfers today ride pipeline, John Florence and Kelly, and it's mind-blowing the chances that they take. But boards today are so much shorter, so guys are taking off so much later, and they're just managing to stick it in the face, almost like the first guys that did that with a boogie board is this famous Hawaiian boogie boarder guy called Mike Stewart, who was really a revolutionary, even though he was on a boogie board, about how a pipeline can be ridden. But it was always it's a very intimidating wave. You can stand on the beach at pipeline and you can feel that concussion almost through your feet, because it breaks very close. It's only 25 to 50 meters out. It's right there. It's almost like it's right near shore. So what's scary about it is the wave comes up out of very deep water, and it hits the shallow coral reef, stands straight up, and then you've got a very hard offshore wind, northeast trade wind. So often, pipeline, and then there's a massive pack of people. Now, it wasn't crowded back in my day, but today, you've got a big crowd to contend with. So the big thing at pipeline is you've got to commit, man. You've got to commit to that drop. Right in the surface code, I will take the drop with commitment. So you paddle for that wave. You've got to paddle over the edge. It's almost like you've got to break through this fear barrier, and then you just got to absolutely commit to the drop. No hesitation. You have to be absolutely unequivocal in your focus and your desire and your power to just paddle over that edge. And then it's the big tube ride. Today it's not so much. You don't really see maneuvers that much at pipeline. It's just how can we take off as deep as possible. And and make it out. And the danger is there because you're surfing over a very shallow coral reef, and pipeline, no matter how good the guys are, and even though they've got leg ropes, they still die out there. You know, there's this incredibly fast current that sweeps along right by the beach. It's most probably a 5 or 6 knot current. So if you get caught in the white water there and you get knocked out, the guys just can't get to you in time. Even though there's lifeguards there with jet skis, people still die there. I think 18 people have died at the pipeline. And in fact, the last wave that I rode at the Banzai pipeline, it was an exhibition heat a few years ago. Right before the final, they had some past champions. They said, "Oh, you go out there." The surf was about 8 to 10 feet, radical. And I pulled into this big back door. Back door was the right-hand braking wave. And I pulled right into, and I was right back in the tube. And I thought, man, it's like the 70s. I'm going to come blasting out. And next thing, I'm lying on the reef, smashed on the reef, and my board comes over and hits me in the nose so hard that I just saw stars, broke my nose, exploded my nose.
Jesus.
And I came out bleeding. And I remember half stunned, and there was still a few minutes left in the heat, So I get washed in, and I walk up, and there's thousands of spectators on the beach. And I walk up to a spectator to go, how's my nose? And I walked up to show him, but the guy just ran away. I quickly, I thought, now I've got a few minutes left. I paddled out. And as I paddled out, the other guys in the water, this famous Hawaiian, Dane Killer, he goes, "Hey, Shaun, you better go in right now." I said, "Why? Does it look really bad?" He said, "No, you're going to attract sharks. There's too much blood."
And Shaun, I think it's just a couple of comments. You want to come on as well, Mike? I'll give you a...
Yeah.
And I see Kenny Barwood's on there, say, "Cool, J-Bay surf." There's lots of love coming on here, Shaun. Plenty. And, Davina there from Sydney. I see Mike Grady here after 40 years
Barry
as well.
Walkman, I think he moved to the States. How are you doing, Barry?
Excellent, man. Mirinda Ferreira, good evening as well. And Kathy Marsh, she's got her hair back again, I see. Yes. Garth Webster.
Big G.
Local here in PE as well. To watch the Gunston 500, of course, I heard you talking about it earlier.
Incredible. I forgot to mention Gavin, what an amazing surfer he was. Incredible. One of the greatest.
Yeah, for sure. I see Barry Booker saying Shaun and Paul coming to SA next July. Is that right? Excellent. August, brilliant. So I'm not meeting him. Okay, brilliant.
Jeff Iziko, my good mate here, who's raised tens of millions of dollars for challenged athletes. Just an incredible, incredible work for the community. Still very
brilliant, man.
Thank you, Terry.
They're still very prachtig for you. There we go. Absolute legend and greatest of all time. There we go. Gunston 500.
Keith Clark.
Keith Clark's in the house here. He supplies us with some gin and punches and stuff every now and again.
Hello, Nuck.
And there we go. Spyball saying hello. Stuart Portuguese all the way from USA as well. They're watching from all over the world.
Oh, they love you, Gino. Cool.
Dean
Allen's our historian. He's over in Slovakia at the moment. So we got people.
I love
this surf culture.
I love the lighthouse feature.
Oh, there we go. Yes, very nice. Barbara Manners, Barbara knows everybody in this town as well. She's been a sunrise. Thank you so much, Barbara. Anthony, all the way from Cape Town. I know Anthony's from Cape Town, and biggest salutes to you as well. There we go.
Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, no, this is very cool. It's very nice. Very nice of you guys to do this. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for coming on, Shaun. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
I've been picking up stompies the whole way through. I've been on the plane, so we get little bits and pieces here and there.
Shaun, thank you very much for your time. It's really been great catching up with you, and hopefully we can catch up with you in August. But we want to try and do the auction on that board, or try and do something along those lines. And then if we get the right number, we donate the balance to your charity, or charity of your choice.
Great, yeah. No, there's
we'll discuss that with Spider.
Yeah, there's two great charities. There's 9 Mile Foundation down in Cape Town, and Surfers Not Street Children up in Durban. So those are 2 charities I love. Both of them just do incredible work using.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we get the money to those ones. We'll keep in touch with you, and we'll find the right spot to do it. And speak to Spider. I did an auction at the Billabong program, the Corona Pro, and I think they raised like 220,000 rand or something there for a charity too. So if we get the surfers drunk enough, then we'll be able to do it. Oh, sure. Yeah, but Shaun, I know, I can't hear you on this particular one. Yeah.
Don't worry, I can lip read.
Okay,
I can lip read.
But thank you so much, Shaun.